I'm currently a co-executive producer of Wings of Fire, which is being produced at Netflix and Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and I'm Krista Starr. I'm also, besides being Dan's wife, a co-EP on Wings of Fire for Netflix and Warner Brothers, adapting the fantabulous series written by Tui Sutherland.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Tui, and I wrote the Wings of Fire series, and I'm so excited about the TV show.
I'm Emily, and I'm a reptile educator. My husband Ed and I run a reptile store, zoo, and store in Minnesota. We also run a reptile rescue in addition to that, where we deal with real life dragons, like bearded dragons that we often have for adoption. So we have the a wide array of reptiles and amphibians that we deal with on a regular basis.
Tui, if I can start by throwing a question at you, how did you get into writing?
Oh gosh, I've always wanted to be a writer, like from when I was really little. Like I mean, I remember, I learned to read around like age 4 or 5, and I was already making up stories then. So my mom will tell you, actually my mom's favorite way to explain it to people is we wouldn't let her have television. So that's why she had to read a lot. So it's really because of me that she's a writer. So, we grew up overseas. So, we were just, and we moved a lot. So every time we moved, like the library was like the safe place where I could find all my friends that I had in the library in the previous one. So I don't know, I guess I always was thinking about stories and wanting to write my own. And then after college, I actually went to work in publishing for a while. So I kind of got a sense of how books are made and like what the whole process is for getting them published. And I was writing on my own at the time, and until I was able to get a book to an editor and eventually get an agent, and that sort of set me off. But
and you were a theater major, weren't you?
No, I thought about being a theater major because I love theater. I was always like, I did a lot of, especially backstage stuff. Like I liked stage managing. But I ended up, so I went to Williams thinking about being a theater major, but I ended up majoring in English and art history. Which I think actually like pretty helpful in terms of like thinking about stories. And for art history, I mostly was taking like Western art classes where we talked about how the art represented like the mythology of the different cultures. And so there were a lot of stories in that too. And that was really cool.
So interesting, I kind of have a similar story. I always knew that I wanted to write, but I also wanted to take the science path. And I was really inspired by books like Never Cry Wolf, Gentle Ben, the one that took those scientific concepts and packaged them for younger minds. And I ended up following the science course, getting 2 years out of graduation and realizing in horror that I could no longer string together 2 paragraphs correctly if it wasn't in a technical report, which I was really, really good at by that time. And so I tried to start writing again just based on pure self-discipline, and that was a pointless task. So I found a community online that I could write with and get feedback from, and I started writing again. And I'd always kind of knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to write comedy, but the first story that came out was a tragedy. Oh, by the way, Emily, my apologies to Ed. And please let him rest assured that there's a very confused Mike out there somewhere who has a book signed to Ed, but my fans are really awesome and they never complain about anything I do. So, so he never got back to me about that. But,
oh no!
So you can tell you the ML. Oh, so that was you who sent that.
Yeah.
Oh, Ed, do you remember when a fan sent? Well, somebody sent to Emily and Mike.
Yes.
That was Betty.
I mailed off like
he's like, where did Mike come from?
I mailed like 4 book packages that day. There's a very confused Mike out there somewhere.
So it means there's someone else named Mike who got one for Ed. That's what it means. Yes. Now it makes sense.
Life is full of surprises when you're dyslexic.
That's awesome. Oh, it made a huge joke like that. People took off with that. So no, that was hilarious. Actually, it worked out really well.
And then when Ed was reading my letter and he said the pink one was the tragedy and the blue one was the comedy, I'm like, oh no, did I mess that up too? I'm just traumatized.
Oh, that's what made you think of it.
Oh
That's
no!
funny. I think comedy and tragedy are very, very closely associated, and I think one is a completely valid entry point to the other. And I think that's common of a lot of
So-
writers, a lot of comedians, you know.
Yeah, I kept trying to write these short comedic stories, but they never quite went the way I intended to. And then this one story I was writing just took off. Everybody was responding to it. It was resonating with everybody. And halfway through, I realized this story was going to end with me killing 3 babies. And I'm like, oh, okay.
You're like,
I'm
how did I
writing
get here?
tragedy. And then I get 3/4 of the way through, and I realized that I was processing something that had happened in my family's life not too long before that, and spent a couple hours bawling in my bedroom. And then I'm like, okay, finish the story. And once I'd written that story, I figured I'd go on with that series. But after that, all that came out was comedy. So I had this massive wad of unprocessed trauma emotions, and that's how, and getting that out was my first book.
I say one great takeaway from that for people watching and who are interested in writing is that sometimes your story tells you what it wants to be, and you just need to follow it. You can always rewrite later. That's the whole point, is the rewriting. But like sometimes you just have these impulses, and it's, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of our job to follow them and see where they lead, because wonderful discoveries can come out of them. And if nothing else, you just need to get things out, you know.
So your turn, Emily. How do you wind up running a massively successful YouTube channel about taking care of reptiles?
I mean, it was really just unexpected. We're just a bunch of reptile nerds over here, honestly.
Nerds.
Yeah. I guess all of Snake Discovery started with traveling reptile shows, where I used to work for the DNR, and my job was to create programs, educational programs about natural resources.
Department of Natural Resources.
Yes, thank you. DNR, Department of Natural Resources. Yes. So I was a tree hugger all throughout high school and college. But after I worked with the DNR, that's really what taught me how to make programs in general. And after that seasonal position ended, I was like, you know, I really enjoy reptiles, and I really enjoy teaching people about wildlife. So I put 2 and 2 together and developed a traveling reptile program that was educational and entertaining, just trying to get people over their fear of reptiles, and especially snakes. So as my small business was growing and I was doing more and more programs, I was doing lots of library programs. And at the end of one of these programs, after just having taught an audience of 50 4th graders about geckos and snakes and this and that, I'd always have a family or 2 come up to me after the show and ask, oh, we really like that gecko you taught us about. So how do we take care of a fat-tailed gecko? We want to get one too. And I felt bad because I was kind of on a time crunch. I was on a bit of a schedule. So I'd always have to time it so that, okay, I can give myself, 15, 30 minutes after this program, then I have to be off and on my way to the next one. And I wasn't able to answer everybody's questions. So I started making videos so that I could divert them to the channel, and that would answer their questions so I could skedaddle a little bit earlier. But it turned out that a lot of people want to learn about reptiles online in video format. So it just kind of took off from there. I made it my New Year's resolution in 2017, maybe it was. I can't remember exactly what year it was, to do 1 educational video a week. And on the same day that week, I'd go through an entire year, see where we were at and if I was still enjoying it, and then continued if I was. And yeah, I still enjoyed it. The audience took a little while to grow, but it did take off just one day. And now my husband and I work full-time for Snake Discovery, and it turned from just an educational program to a virtual program with YouTube. And now, thanks to all the support we've gotten over the years, our COVID project was buying a 10,000 square foot building in Minnesota and renovating it to be a reptile store up front and a zoo in the middle, and then kind of our office breeding area, like reptile breeding, and a classroom, because in February we plan on starting up birthday parties in-house too. So it's kind of come full circle, but we're almost at phase 3, which is starting up programs again, since we've had to stop them due to COVID. But they're gonna start up again soon, and then we'll have everything running. So it's been quite the project.
Wow. Our daughter would love to throw a birthday party there if we were closer. Unfortunately, we're like 1,500 miles from you. But if we weren't, that would be where we would be going for her birthday.
Bit of a drive.
A little bit.
I think the benefit of this kind of media is that in this generation, children of all, gender and description, they can kind of follow the impulse to learn more about these interests and to see people who they can identify with, you know, as being of the same interest. Whereas before the availability of that kind of media, I think it was very easy for culture to kind of like weed the curiosity out, whether it's you know, like a gender constructs that would maybe like sort of steer young women away, or just also well-meaning parents who just didn't know enough and were intimidated and nudged their kids in another direction. So what's wonderful is that not only is this there for the children, but it's also there for the adults and for entire families to like learn together and see how fascinating it is, and how it's needn't be alien or needn't be something that's for somebody else, you know.
I have found that in my years doing programs, the more excited you are about them and the more fun facts you share about them, the more likely a scared individual is going to be to approach the animal you're teaching about and to touch it. Naming also goes a long ways, like having an approachable name like Doug the boa constrictor. People are like, oh, his name is Doug, how could he be mean? So we try to take a very positive approach to teaching people about reptiles, because I honestly do have a tougher time getting adults to touch snakes than kids.
Well, yeah, I can imagine it would be hard to pet Finger Eater, the snapping turtle. But Doug, cool. We're good with Doug.
Exactly.
Finger Eater is a very
That's a Nightwing
name.
I was about to say, totally a Nightwing name. It's all about the branding.
Yep.
Krista, how do you end up co-producing cartoon shows?
I have a long history of working in animation on the technical side. For many years, I was in special effects, and then I was in animation doing lighting and effects and rendering and that sort of thing. And I've always been interested in the writing and creative side of stuff. When Dan and I met, I started editing his work for him and contributing a little bit. I ghost wrote a couple of Robot Chicken sketches that he did. And, you know, I just found it very fascinating to be on the end of things where you can, I'm also, I guess, a little bit of a teacher. And so what I found interesting about these projects is you can learn a lot through TV, and you can learn a lot through, well, YouTube, of course, and through stories and through different variations of media. So I guess I wanted to have a little more impact in the end result at the end of the day, and took a couple classes, I think, Dan, and I started getting really into the writing side of stuff for a while. Then I had our daughter, and I had to put it on hold. But then when I read Wings of Fire, which was another thing, our daughters started reading them, and I stole all her books because I was like, I have to see if this is appropriate for my child to read. And I was like, okay, now they're mine. And I read through them all, and I was like, this is amazing. And I said to Dan, I was like, I feel this story so much, and I feel like it's saying so many of the things I want to say. I said, if ever we were to take on, you know, a project after Glitch Sex, because Glitch Sex was still happening at the time, I said, I really hope it can be this one.
Yeah, we'd been looking for a project to do together for a long time, and we loved Wings so much that it was not necessarily just a matter of like, we have to do this. Like, the hope was that we could be involved, but we also loved it so much we felt very protective of it, and we thought, well, if we're not doing this, I hope this author at least like knows enough about the industry to, you know, not just fall in love with, you know, I mean, it was just presumptuous of us to think that Tui might be taken advantage of, because quite the opposite. She's very savvy and she knows very much how to protect her material. But we were like, oh my God, this is a property that could so easily be like mishandled and seen by surface only. So when we finally met Tui, a lot of the attitude we brought was, look, even if we're not the people, just know we love this, and just know, don't accept anything less than such and such. And like, you know, please don't let anybody tell you, you know, that it's less than what it is, etc. And I think that's just because we not only love the story, but the themes are very much about how stories touch and affect us and shape our world and our worldview and our traditions, and to be reverent of that, but also question it.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, if you don't mind me jumping in, just to say that it was so clear to me how much they understood it. Like they felt like kindred spirits. Like the minute first they wrote me a letter and I was like, oh, they get it so much. And then actually meeting with them, I was like, these are my people. And like, this is like exactly who I want to be doing this. Like,
honored. I'm honored. Well, I did feel like
so much fun.
when we started talking, I remember our first phone call, and after we were talking with your agent was on the phone for a while, and we were talking so long that finally he had to jump. He had some other meeting he had to get to, and as soon as he was off the call, I was like, okay, tell me all about this, tell me all about that. Like I like went out of pitch mode, and I was like, what's the scorching? I need to know more about the scorching.
Yep. And I think then we diverged into talking about like other TV and like all the shows that we like that we have in common, and it was like, yeah, okay, I feel very, very comfortable with this.
Yeah, it was so fun. It was a joy. It's always a joy speaking to Tui, always. But I will say one of the nice things about my background being slightly technical compared to Dan's has been the ability to sort of pinpoint things in the production that might become, say, too big to make. Like there are certain aspects of, we're doing it in CG, so there are certain things in CG that are hard to render, hard to build, that you sort of have to you have to take into account the man hours, the technology level, that sort of thing. And since we have some constraints on the amount of time we have per episode, the budget we have per episode, and everything, I feel like that helps too, to sort of keep it grounded. And that's another thing we really want for the series, is for it to be a grounded feeling show. It's a fantasy world and it's got fantasy concepts, but Tui's characters are very grounded, and we want the look and feel of the show to be grounded as well. So I feel like my technical background helps bring that into the mix as well.
Where the realm of possibilities are.
Yeah, because in my head I was like, oh, it's animation, you can literally do anything. But
if you have unlimited money, yes. If you have all the money and all the time, you can make something like Arcane.
You kind of can. You kind of can. It just requires a lot, being very clever to really whatever you're putting in that proscenium to create that magic effect, you just have to be very clever about. You may be looking at something.
Note, proscenium.
Oh yes. Proscenium is like a window, a stage, a limited amount of space in which the art takes place, whether it's a painting, whether it's a photograph, or whether it's
puppet
a television show,
whatever it is. It all takes place in a frame. Live
action, animation, stop motion, what it all has in common is the proscenium. And so we would very often
until we get to VR, that's a whole other subject.
Yes. And that anything that's put in front of the camera, if you will, and presented to the audience, obviously you want to project a certain feeling, a certain look. But if you were to look at the side, let's say, of this beautiful set, you might see that it's paper thin, because only what faces the camera is what's important. And that's kind of the magic of movies, television, and really any art form really, is to create this illusion.
Ever been on one of those lot tours, like studio lot tours, if you come to LA, or you see them on videos where you see the city street and you go around the back and it's just planks of wood, it just,
so we have to do our equivalent of that, to use our money very wisely and our resources very wisely.
Like we have lots of fun discussions in animation of, okay, we're building, for example, a hallway, and we need hallways in a bunch of episodes, and what can we change about this one hallway we built to make it look like it's in a different set?
Can we reuse this hallway as other
locations? Do we change
locations?
the light fixtures? Do we change, the ground plane? Like all these different things that you can do to alter an existing, they call it an asset. Because in animation, there's a lot of stuff you do in live action where you can find a location that fits your needs already. Like there are castles in the world that you could go to in film, or there's, cities you can go to. And in animation, especially CG, you're building everything from the ground up.
Everything is built.
Everything, every leaf, every tree, every dragon. So.
Plus, not only are you creating a world for one species or one tribe, I refer to them as species. I don't know if that's all right or not, but I see them as individual species. But then you're recreating it from scratch for say the Rainwing tribe versus a Mudwing tribe. Like everything is
Yes.
different in that scenery, so you can't reuse it from
Right.
one biome to another, or one book, I guess, to another. Everything is new except for
Yeah.
the characters themselves.
There
That's
are
another thing that's
so
very
many
unique
biomes.
about this show and about this series. And we are building multiple biomes, and a lot of animated shows take place in one. We've got 6. I
All
think.
very distinct, unique, with their own culture, their own identity, and yet there's something that is, there's connective tissue in that, you know, just like we and people around the world are all Homo sapiens, you know, these are all dragons. There are things that are common to all of them, and it's very challenging, but it's the joy to think about that always. How are they different? How are they the same? And how are they different from us, so that we don't just recreate human-sized props at new proportions. You know, you don't just create a chair that looks like a human chair. It's like, what would a dragon sit
Yeah.
upon? What's comfortable to them? Or if it's
And
built
different
by talons,
different
you know.
tribes would use it differently. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
in some tribes where they're very
Advanced.
I don't know if advanced is the word, but just a little bit more showy. You know, their
Oh, right.
throne might be facing a certain way, and when you get to the Rainwings, for example, they may just be on a hammock. There's a lot of different ways of representing. And I did say 6 biomes, even though I should have said 7. So can you fix that?
Humans are weird. We took a vote, and humans are weird. I have the data. 2 books in a series of human absurdity. Go check out these short story collections. What will our little green friends think of us when we finally do make it to space? Find out the answer in 2 books of human absurdity. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, and Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Google Play.